Alright, hello BookTube, Books with Banks back again with another video. This will be my first monthly reading wrap-up video, but today I'll actually not just be talking about 1 month, since I just started my channel a couple months ago, and this is the first time I'm doing one of these. I'll actually go over what I've read and what I've been reading through for roughly all of October and November. So the plan is to do a monthly wrap-up video and a reading goals video now at the end and or beginning of every month from here on out. And fear not, I won't spoil anything I read or any of the books I mention. I will break it down into different kind of formats though, so novels, novellas, audiobooks, etc. So first and foremost, let's talk about the one and only audiobook I finished listening to recently, this being The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, published in 2020. This book is about a husband who is accused of murdering his mistress, and then his defense attorney, wife, takes his case. Part investigative murder mystery, part courtroom drama. That's at least the premise. My fiance and I listened to this on longer road trips and car rides, and this audiobook is narrated by Neil Helligers and Terry Schobelt. To be honest, we started listening to this way back in probably August, only finishing up the majority of it recently. I wasn't the biggest fan. My fiance wasn't either. In fact, I wasn't a fan at all. I felt that the POV choices and plot contrivances did not work at all for the twist at the end. Without saying what the twist is, and that the twist makes much of the novel feel a bit irrelevant or a bit like time wasted. Honestly, it took us so long to listen to the book because of how the male protagonist is constantly complaining and raging against his situation, being accused for murder, which sucks, I get it, but when you're called in for questioning as a suspect in a murder case, you probably shouldn't be throwing chairs around the interrogation room, just a tip. But he does stuff like that all throughout the book. His unlikable behavior, his sort of sex-obsessed inner monologues, all of that just makes him so unlikable that by the end of it, I really wasn't rooting for him. I was rooting for him to go to jail, even if he did or didn't do the crime. I didn't really care. I just didn't like the guy at all. Yeah, regardless of whether he's guilty or not. And then the female lead, probably the main character and protagonist, she gets a little more page time than her husband. But she starts off fine, but over the course of the book, I think she gets unbearably rude and snippy, especially with like secretarial or like front desk type employees. She's constantly like flipping them off and calling them the B word and calling them names for apparently no reason except to convey that, oh, she's serious and she's stressed and she's charging ahead. She doesn't have time for their silly sign-in sheets or whatever. That's the only thing I can think about. Or the only reason I can think that the author chose to write her that way. Also, so much of the most like mundane and things and like physical characteristics are described to like a painful level of detail. Like she took her plastic wrap sandwich out of her purse, peeled open the plastic bag, took out the sandwich, crumpled up the baggie, put it back in her purse, took a bite, realized she wasn't hungry, so on and so on. We get it. And we have to know how all the female characters' hips and breasts and noses and cheeks look like all the time whenever they enter a room. Really, I could go on and on ranting about this. Just not a great book. Maybe I'd like it more if I hadn't done the audiobook, but just read the physical copy. I don't know. If you're a fantasy fan looking to read outside of our favorite genre, I do not recommend this as an avenue outside of what we normally read. Anyway, moving on to more positive stuff. Moving on to plays, similar to audiobooks, I just read one in these last couple months, that being A Midsummer Night's Dream. I thoroughly enjoyed this whimsical comedy, and it fits the promise of my channel well, being full of fantastical elements. I highly recommend the Folger Shakespeare Library updated editions if you haven't read much Shakespeare, because they're filled with annotations, introductory material. You can just see every page has like opposite it is like notes and things. But yeah, all this introductory material and essays in the end, even has breakdowns of like Shakespeare's more complex language. But I won't say too much more about this here, as I have a review of this coming out on my channel sometime this week. By the way, if you want to see that or any of my other content, please like and subscribe. Thanks. So now moving on to novellas. I read two novella or one short story kind of and one novella. And these were the first two in Lord John and the Hand of the Devils. These being the first one is Lord John and the Hellfire Club. The second one is Lord John and the Succubus. This is a side series, the Lord John stuff, stories and novels. A side series of novels and novellas in Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series. This was basically all about, the first one was about our main character, Lord John, in like high society, getting wrapped up in a gentleman's club that is a lot darker than anything he signed on for. And he's also investigating someone that was killed and why someone might have been killed. That was Lord John and the Hellfire Club. Lord John and the Succubus. This is basically a bunch of British officers helping their German allies during the 7 Years' War and helping them investigate mysterious murders and the sightings of like a witch or a succubus, they think, in a small German town, right when like an opposing French army is nearby. Both stories, they're good, dark little mysteries, historical fiction pieces, nicely done by Gabaldon. She never fails to please. Really good side content in the Outlander series. Then one more, or another side medium genre before getting to the novels would be graphic novels. And Dark Horse is releasing these larger collections of Neil Gaiman's Sandman series. So there are 4 volumes. However, I only have the first one right now. I was going to save this to read and get into the Sandman next year, but I simply couldn't resist. So yeah, it's hooks in me and dragged me into this wondrously imaginative and poetic world of Morpheus, the dream god. I'm very excited to move on with the series. From what I understand, this volume here collects the previously published Arcs volumes, first Preludes and Nocturnes, then The Doll's House, and then Dream Country. It's like basically the first 20 issues of the Sandman run. I will have to do a review of this whole series once I'm finished, but I could possibly do like a quarterly update / check-in type of video. Great stuff here, and now I have to convince the fiance and mother-in-law to watch the adaptation with me. I've heard some really good things about the adaptation as well. And then finally, the main event of a wrap-up video like this, the novels that I read. So first, I've read, or finished up reading, The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This is a missing persons mystery. A bartender sister comes to stay with her brother in Paris in his creepy apartment complex, only to discover that he's gone missing once she gets there. And all of the other denizens of the apartment building are super sketchy and suspicious, and not giving her too much information. I thought it was a bit compelling, but did rely on that trope of a lot of different point of views and first-person characters, or first-person narrators, acknowledging that they know what went on, but then only being super vague in their like narration, so not giving us the reader that many specifics, just to keep us off the trail. So it's not something we, the readers or audience, can really play too much along with, but I do think there's smaller twists along the way that you can kind of start to piece some things together. But despite all that, I actually thought the twists and turns worked really well, and the characters were pretty interesting, if only a little bit too unlikable overall. A good book. I read this as part of a book club. Really, really good. I think I was actually probably one of the... I think I probably thought better of this book than most of the other people in the book club did. Yeah, Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Okay, then I read Lord John's back here, Lord John and the Private Matter. This one Gabaldon was writing and realized it was the length of a novel, or publisher said it could be published as a novel. This is the first in a trilogy of Lord John novels, a side series of novels. And so this was a nice historical fiction murder mystery, similar to the short stories, but this one was all around and about like the LGBTQ plus nightlife of 1750s London, even though for sure they wouldn't have used like an acronym like that back then, but that's basically what it is. It's a nice read and not terribly long diversion away from the main series. Pretty good stuff, pretty good historical research in here too. I'm getting to a kind of a window into aspects of London life that you might not read about in a history class textbook. Good stuff. And then last but not least of the books that I read and finished was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I already have a review of this book up on my channel, but a brief summary: a ghostwriter who can talk to ghosts has to return home to get her small town, or has to return home to get back to her small town after a death in the family, and while there she grapples with the love her family has for her, as well as whether or not she personally will ever find a true romantic love again. It's really, really good, and I think easily my favorite of the books I've read these past couple months, or I've read and finished reading these past couple months. Then last but not least, let me talk just real briefly about what I'm currently reading, what I'm currently in the middle of. And I guess you could say, of course, I'm in the middle of the Sandman series now. Just finished volume 1, but really looking forward to picking up volume 2. I'm also still, because I took a side road with all of those Lord John things, I am unfortunately still making my way through Voyager. I've got about 400 pages left in this one. This is book 3 in Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series, but I keep taking, I definitely intend to finish and review Voyager, though, in the first half of December, in the next week or two here. Really looking forward to finally knocking this one out. And then I'm nearing the end of Obelisk Gate, Book 2 in N.K. Jemison's Broken Earth trilogy. I'm loving it so far, even more than I enjoyed the first one, the 5th season. But even though they're rather short books as far as like fantasy goes, I do find them slightly difficult reads, just the way they're written, how dense some of the themes can be. I enjoy the style, but it is a style I struggle to read super quickly. So yeah, I'm going to finish this up early this month, and then I'm going to try and finish Stone Sky by the end of the year as well. And anyway, that's that. Please let me know if you've read any of these books yourself, or perhaps any of the works I mentioned might be on your 2023 TBRs. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and share my channel with your friends. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye.